You made this music, this incredible music. Congratulations.
Thank you. I feel like this is an entirely new chapter, honestly, for me. Because when I was making music, I think I've had definitely a journey in terms of how I've viewed myself as the creative. And I think when I first started, it was very much like DIY. I was filming everything, all my music videos myself. I was recording my music in my
People forget
room.
you came from mixtape culture and you were doing this
Right.
before anybody else got
Yes.
involved.
So, like, I had that really raw spirit, that raw energy. And I think that that really created something special. And maybe along the way, along the course of my journey, there were definitely times or things or I guess events that would make me question that creative voice that kind of always just kind of spoke through me, which is like my instinct and following that and getting back to that now with this new music and everything. And just like everything, feeling so like in alignment and just like everything falls into place. It's so great.
It's funny you talk about the idea of other opinions, other things getting in the way of your instincts. And I think that's a construct of success more often than not. And people
Yeah.
forget that when you get a certain level of attention, that leads to a certain level of investment, which leads to more success, which leads to more of a connection to that infrastructure. And you lose the center of where you came from a lot of the time.
Yeah. And it's a very insidious process how that happens, I think. It's not something that just happens overnight. It's
No,
not
it's
like
a
one
frog in a pot
person.
of boiling water. It really is.
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
just don't even realize that maybe you're taking into consideration the opinions of your fans now. You have the media. You have, all these people that potentially run a very successful business that are trying to guide you in a way that you trust is the right direction, but maybe something just isn't aligning, and it's really hard to then refine that voice in that center. And for me, once I was able to do that, I think it just like it clicked and it just feels so much better.
Oh man, I listen. I don't pretend to know you very well, but every time I've ever spoken to you, I've always really enjoyed it, and I'm a fan of your music.
Yeah, thank you.
But I'm going to make a bold observation. Back in 2018, when we spoke around Joyride, there wasn't the joy I see right now.
Yeah. No, absolutely not. I think with that album, it was a process because I had a kind of a disagreement in terms of what that project looked like. I think I initially went into it with like all this excitement coming out of my debut album and like wanting to explore all these sounds and like we just weren't kind of in alignment, me and my record label at the point. And it took 3 years, I think, for that project to come out, and for me, psychologically, I don't know,
That's painful.
yeah, the struggle of wanting to release a body of work and not really feeling the support within your community and just kinda questioning then why that is, and it led me down a path of kind of just feeling like I had to kind of fulfill an obligation to that project as opposed to really digging deep and finding the joy within the music at that time. So I think that that's probably what makes that album feel a little bit stale, or that era was very for me, it was very frustrating. And, now just having this mentally, just the sense of freedom, the sense of
Freedom is the word.
boundlessness.
That's the word that keeps
Yes.
coming up on this record. It comes up in the
Yes.
videos.
Yeah.
You felt a disconnection and a resistance within your immediate community of the team you were with from a label and surrounding. But what Joyride actually did, I think, from my perspective as a fan, was it created a huge level of support within your fan community
It did.
because you came out and announced it. We had to wait for it,
Yeah.
and people realized like she's not happy. And then when you decided you wanted to take back your happiness, there was just universal applause from your fans. And it must have felt nice to know that in a weird way, out of that struggle came something ultimately positive.
Oh, absolutely. I think I would not have become the artist that I become if I hadn't gone on the journey. And I'm very thankful that I was able to, have the low points, quote unquote, when they happened because it did teach me so much.
I think about this album and I think about how much ground you cover, and just you've always, to me, been, take this the right way, please, perfect weirdness. Like it's
Thank
like
you. Yes.
you totally take risks creatively. You've never been this person who sits in a box. It's just we're all figuring it out now. So when there isn't a record label, and no disrespect, I'm sure there are good people at the label. I'm not sort of,
Totally are.
I'm not
Absolutely.
bringing them in to kick them around. Just as an example, though, anybody in your circle who's giving you some kind of structure,
Mhm.
like this producer, That's a structure.
Totally.
You know, we need a song on this radio format, structure. When you don't have any of that stuff, where do you start?
For me, it was just experimenting. I would get in the room and I would say to the producers, like, what's the weirdest beat that you have? Because they would always play me something that to me would sound like something that they thought I would want
Yeah.
every time.
No 101 in the producer writer world is to write something you think the artist wants when they walk in. It never
Do
works.
not,
Yeah.
do not. So for me, it was finding the opposite of what they thought I wanted and then kind of deconstructing it from there.
Yeah.
And I think that that was a really fun process of it's interesting because as far as we go, because sometimes we experiment really far out, we kind of always bring it back to a certain extent as well. And I think that that's kind of where my sweet spot lies in terms of experimentation, and then also kind of creating music that, you know, people can sing along to in a sense.
Well, one of my favorite songs, Promises, that you're gonna sing along to, and actually, yeah, Small Reminders
I
comes
love
in. Oh
that.
my God, I love that song so much. That song comes in like classic, timeless R&B with the real high tambourine, the whole thing, multiple rhythmic movements, and then it just goes off into like almost 3 or 4 different suites. And by the end of it, I honestly think that that last minute of that song is one of the best minutes on the record.
Thank you.
Just what you're saying and the way you're saying it, it's like a love letter to yourself. It's like you're trying to nurture yourself. How did you make that piece of music? Where did that come from?
Well, it was a journey in terms of creating it and reflecting it sonically, how I wanted to go through the motions. But I think it started off with the main piece of music at the beginning, which is time is racing, life feels so long, don't go wasting before it's all gone. And having that kind of sentiment of being joyful in that, but also there's like a reflectiveness in that. There's a it kind of circles back. And when the music slows down and has that moment at the end, I think that that's a moment of reflectiveness. And I think literally talk about looking in the mirror. And and I also think that while I was creating this record, there was a lot of self-reflection going on.
This album, it just delivers on your first independent release. It further delivers on all of that sense of creative excitement. And if I was just to take one element out to focus on right now, vocally, easily your best performance on any record.
Thank you.
And it sounds like you were having a lot of fun experimenting and trying things with your voice because there wasn't that like, oh, it's got to fit this format or this structure. Like,
That song is a perfect example of to me, it doesn't fit like a particular genre at all.
yeah,
And that's why I love it, is because it's just a sonic experience.
yeah.
And I wasn't kind of limited by that mentality of like, oh,
It
this
has to
needs
go from
to
this connection to this connection to
right.
this
This is how
connection.
it's structured. This is how it's formatted. You know, you got your bridge and then you got your hook and then you got your post hook. And just like not following those rules. Like forget the rules.
I'm thinking about the video bounce and what an unbelievable expression that is.
Thanks.
Like the choreography in that is one of the most unbelievable things.
Thank you.
Just must have been so much fun to do, but also, you know, really challenging as well. Because you know, it is that highest level of choreography and dancing that when you see someone at the top of their game and the dances that you built around you never take from you, but that moment when you all reveal each other one by one is
Yeah.
so crazy.
Thank you.
So just to talk me through the video, because when I watched it, it really was. I was like, wow, this is just so incredible.
Yeah, well, it started with the vision of just having the trampolines. Like I was like, I have this vision. And trying to explain it to everyone. I was like, okay, you know, okay, go.
Yeah.
The music video,
Yes,
here it goes again.
yes.
With the
Treadmills.
treadmills. And just how awesome that video was in the way that they incorporated this like mundane object in a ironic and yet not completely unironic way. And it was awesome. I was like, I want to do that.
But you did more than that. It's like you created a new style of dance. It's like the way that you're using gravity. It's, you know, dancing is a constant fight against gravity at all times. You are going it's almost like you shot the video in reverse.
Yeah, well,
Does that
we
make
did
sense?
it. Yeah, I mean, it was hard. Like we had bruises all over our knees. People were throwing their hips out. It was a real thing. So the fact that we achieved it and kind of captured it, I'm really excited about that.
Okay, Do you get emotional when you watch something back and it gets to that point where you know you achieved it or you listen to something back? Does it strike you? I know it's a strange question because, of course, you wouldn't release it, but I mean, overly emotional. How do you feel, I guess, is the
I
question.
feel like honestly, those moments are hard to come by when you truly get emotional because you are kind of going through the motions. You're like you're making this decision, then you're like, okay, now I got to post it, now I got to do this. Like like it's just it becomes part of it becomes part of just like how the process. But that's so critical to enjoy those and to have those moments of reflection. So I try to have them as much as I possibly can. I try to, especially when I'm like complaining. I try to be like, okay, wait, I'm really grateful, you know?
Oh, that's interesting because like everyone on the earth has a right to complain once in a while. That's like
Yeah.
part of what creates space. You got to let it out, right? But then you're trying to build this, you're practicing this, of building this world around you of gratitude to
Yeah.
create balance and equilibrium. So,
Mhm.
what's your relationship like with frustration?
Yeah, I think it's to me, it's just presenting it in a way where you don't let it get too deep. And it's being able to go through emotions, feel them, use them, or take the lesson out of them to apply them to make it better, find a solution, or to just feel sadness, disappointment, frustration, whatever, and then move through that emotion, like recover. I feel like that's the growth, is the recovery period. It's not that you ever don't ever get frustrated, or it's not that you don't ever get disappointed. It's that you can recover faster.
Well, if you don't recover, it becomes part of your next learning,
Totally.
and you learn less and less and less,
Yeah.
and that's where ignorance comes from.
And I feel like the shadows or like the tail ends of the things that we go through all the time bleed into like other things that we do. And before you know it, there's like a whole accumulation of like all these things. And it's just important to kind of move through those things so that you don't hold on to you can only hold on to so much. And I feel like especially when you're creative and you're using that as, the thing that always kind of moves you forward to let the emotion overwhelm you. It happens to artists all the time. Like we're very emotional beings. So if we hold on to it all the time as opposed to using the music to kind of like release it, I think it can be dangerous. So,
I get it. I have this thing where I try to present my best and protect the rest
yeah.
as much as I can.
Yeah, but that can be bad
That can be
too.
bad because then that's my point. You can end up repressing this actual natural need to just go, oh, this is bullshit. You know?
Yeah.
How do you feed your emotions in a healthy way? Where do you go to give them a stretch?
The music always is the way that I'm able to express them.
And what about other people's music?
Oh, other people's music as well. Totally. I think that that's always when I've felt the most melancholy or like the most deep is when I'm kind of like listening to music.
What
For some
gets
reason,
you?
it just brings it out.
Like Justin Vernon
I
gets.
was just about to say, I was literally just about to say his music.
Alright, so
I could listen to it for Emma forever ago and I'll just be like,
my God,
my feels.
this song here, just the way that it starts, the first opening notes.
It just feels instinctual. And I think that's why it brings it out of you because it's just like, it's that natural part of you that is within him that makes that art.
I know it's a kind of a more obvious thing, but I want to pay respect to some of the collaborators on this record
Oh, yeah.
because you cover some great ground. And I want to start with Cash.
She's awesome.
Awesome. And I have this thing about Cash Page where I'm like, when are you all going to catch up?
Yeah.
Like, when are you all going to
Hopefully,
figure it out?
hopefully we're
This will
helping.
help. This will
Yeah.
definitely help.
She's awesome.
So what is the environment in which that you hear Cash Page and recognize this isn't just a new artist or an artist, this is one for me, I'll take it with me?
I think for me, I just kinda always look again for that, like, intangible quality. There's just something about her that I think is really special, and working with her, I think it was really reflective of that, like, it was so effortless. Her verse, I feel like, fit so perfectly and elevated the song in such a way that was so easy, and she just kind of sent it to me like it was very easy as well. She was like, "I just did this, let me know." And, yeah, and I think that that's what I look for in a collaboration, is that it doesn't feel contrived or forced or put together. It just feels like an effortless, like, combining of the energies.
The way that you incorporate your sexuality into your music is incredible. I think of you as like as in the same sense that Janet,
Mhm. Well, she's like my idol.
I mean,
And
just
Britney.
immediately took control.
And I think both of those women really kind of have taken I love when women can take sexuality and flip it and make it soft and make it hard and make it both like bad bitch and also vulnerable
Well,
and
here, well,
sweet.
well, hi Jeremiah. You go sit over there and you do that,
Yeah.
which is amazing, because
Yes.
it's like it's always it's so historically and frustratingly been the other way around. And I think that right now, hopefully, it feels like these albums like this, artists like you are taking strong steps towards resetting that balance. Does it feel that way for you?
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. I think it's important to be a part of that. For me, that's just how I think how I express my sexuality a lot of the time because I just feel so empowered when I'm on stage or when I'm performing that that honestly kind of it's like there is a sexual energy that kind of comes through you to
Yeah.
a certain extent. There's like a power in that. There's also, in vulnerability and in softness and in
Well, it's
sensuality.
all connection
Totally.
and tactility. Those are things. That's the
Mhm.
thing about performing is it's for fans, it's the closest pretty much any of us will get to tactility within the artistic space. And that's why that friction and that energy is so electrifying because it's unrequited at its core, you know?
Absolutely. And I love being able to play with that dynamic. And I love when the music sounds like that, when the videos look like that, creating that tension. I love it. It's so fun. I feel like my fans love it too.